What is the content marketing landscape in 2025 and beyond? I'm making this video because I have been watching the content ecosystem for everybody evolve over the course of the last, I don't know, decade and a half. And I started making blogs back in 2012, 2013 ish. And I started really going hard on all three in 2017, 2018. So in 2017, I started blogging again and actually going a lot harder on it and made Poly Innovator my personal brand, and then started doing podcasting because I was still kind of not used to hearing my voice on camera, or not on camera, but hearing my voice in general. And then even just being on camera was something that was very uncomfortable for me, which is kind of surprising considering how much I love it now. So I didn't really start making videos until 2018. But since then, I have made hundreds of videos, hundreds of podcasts, and nearly 800 blog posts at this point. And even then, I still feel like I'm only just barely getting started. My point is, I've been doing this for a long time, and more importantly than that, like Gary Vee, I've been watching for a very long time. I've watched the bloggers and the newsletter writers. I've watched the YouTubers and the TikTokers and the live streamers. I've watched and really listened to the podcasters, and I've been to podcast movement the last couple of years too. So I got to see people in the higher up echelons of the podcasting world and how they interact and think about the whole podcasting ecosystem. People think that podcasting is dying when it's actually the largest it's ever been, and YouTube is actually going more raw, which is why like right now I'm making this video without editing. I'm making mistakes. I've made 3 so far that I probably would have cut out. Am I going to cut it? Probably not. And I might throw this into Opus Clip or Riverside or maybe Adobe Podcast or something like that, just to make it a little bit higher quality audio. Although this is the Blue Yeti X, so it's generally pretty good. I don't have the Blue Voice enabled on it, but for the most part, it sounds pretty good. I got the gain right about right. And so my point is that like I'm putting out raw content. I'm not overly editing this. I'm not going to overly script it. And that's what's working right now on YouTube. Every year, every couple of years, it fluctuates. And I hated doing the overly edited stuff. I still edit my interviews, but even then, it's to a minimal degree. So this idea of what it's like on YouTube, what it's like on Twitch and Kick, I'm not a streamer really, but I have been in the streaming space for a while, just watching and trying to get as much information as possible, but really you don't know what you're doing until you do it. So I'm going to be working on that a little bit on my gaming channel, just so I can get more advice to give you as a content creator. So for example, one thing I've talked a lot about is multi-streaming. For the last 2 years, I've been screaming, you should be multi-streaming, you should be multi-streaming. And I've been saying this for years now. No one listened. Basically, no one listened. And there were so many tools about it. You had Atom, which was a plugin for OBS, and you had Streamlabs. That was about it. Technically Restream.io, but it's pretty garbage compared to the other tools. And now we have Meld Studio, which if you use the regular Meld, you can multi-stream using your computer and internet. And if you use Multi-Meld, their new beta tool that they have, you can actually send it into them and they'll distribute it for you like Streamlabs does and Restream. And now there's also, many of you will probably write in the comments too, Stream Elements, the plugin for OBS. So there's so many options to multi-stream. Technically there's Lightstream as well, and there might be a couple other smaller tools, but for the most part, you want to stick to the ones that are like that will work. But my point is, by being on multiple platforms, that's going to help you grow. Every streamer, especially nowadays, has to be a creator. I mean, every streamer is a creator. Let me make that point. Every content live streamer is a content creator. However, they don't always think of themselves like that. And so I've been trying to talk to more streamers and convince them like, hey, make more short form video or make some VODs on YouTube or whatever you're posting at. You would even do what I'm doing here on Substack and post your VOD on there. Write a post about what you were thinking in the moment and doing like timestamps maybe, or maybe explaining what you're doing in the video if you're playing like Apex and like here's what happened and here's what was in my mindset going through this moment, teaching people how to play Apex more. That's a way of repurposing that VOD in a way that you probably didn't think of before. And then you could even probably find a way to turn it into a podcast if you have a lot of funny moments too. I don't think that's really viable, but I would be really hard pressed. I'd be really surprised, actually is the right way to say it. I'd be really surprised if someone has not yet taken their gaming live streams and turned it into a successful podcast. I haven't seen it yet, but it'd be really cool. What if you could take those moments that are like cherishable, where you're hanging out with friends or having a really cool sniper moment, and you're just taking the audio out. It's an audio only thing, but you have this experience of just like being in the moment with them. Especially if you maybe added more context to it via recording afterwards. My point being is that live streams need to be syndicated with content so that people can come into your live streams and know that they exist. Because it doesn't matter if you're live streaming to nothing, right? You need to have people coming in from other platforms because Twitch has no discoverability. Even Kick has very limited. YouTube's probably the only live streaming platform that has any discoverability, but even then, you have a lot of competition and saturation. So there is this need for constant influx. However, as a content creator, you also need to find a way to make your content stand out and make it more unique. And so these are all the topics that I find really interesting. I just love it. I nerd out about it. I nerd out about tools. This whole Content Polymath brand started out as a Poly Tools. Like, that's what it was called, the Polymath Toolkit, right? Poly Tools. Because I wanted to make content around the tools you can use as creators. And I still will. I still find tools interesting. But that really wasn't drawing enough people in. But how to be a modern content creator, I think, was drawing some people in. And more importantly, that's the kind of content I want to make, and I think I could help you the most with. And so that's why I'm thinking, okay, going forward, that's what I'm going to do. So in this content, I don't want to say ecosystem because I think ecosystem is more personal, but in this content landscape, there is a lot of changes going on. Podcasts are on the rise, right? You have to kind of find your niche, and there's a lot of dead podcasts out there, but there's a lot of live podcasts that are doing really well. And as much as a lot of the podcasters don't want to admit it, video podcasts are the way to go. If you're going to do interviews, that's the way to go. If you're doing it by yourself, that's a different story. If you're doing fiction, that's a different story. But if you're doing interviews, you need to be doing video, especially for getting clips. There are some new platforms coming out that are audio-only clips. Are they out yet? Not really, but I think they're on the verge of that. And even if they don't come out for a while, there's still that potential there. Clubhouse, I think, is still kicking, is still around. So was Twitter Spaces. So there's a really interesting ways of doing audio, and then you can turn those into podcasts. But really, that is an area that I think a lot of people underestimate the power of. I turn these videos into podcasts as well. Then, the video whole landscape, Facebook is still a place that's underrated. LinkedIn still is an underrated place, despite the fact Gary Vee has been screaming it for the last 3 years, go on LinkedIn, go on LinkedIn. And a lot of people have, but they're still kind of failing at creating content that's contextual to that platform. It is a professional platform. People don't seem to realize that. I would argue that Substack is kind of in that same vein. Substack and LinkedIn have a lot more of the intellectual and professional landscapes. You want to make sure you're actually going into that with your in your content. I should probably have put some bullet points down on this video, but I digress. I wanted to make this video and because I was feeling so motivated to do so. I'm going with it in my head, and I'll get more and more comfortable at coming off the riff, if you will, in these videos as time goes on. So bear with me in this point, but I'm excited, and so I'm getting more and more excited as I talk to you about this. So the video platforms, I didn't even mention YouTube, despite the fact that is the de facto place. I'm on Substack right now. This is getting posted to YouTube, but I'm more motivated right now to make video because of Substack. When you are posting, and I'm going to make a content about this because I don't think there's any video or blog post that really describes what you can do with the audio and video on Substack. But on Substack, if I post a video on there, not only is it a video post, which is already going to be engaging on the platform, it'll find clips for me automatically. Not as good as like Opus Clip, for example, or even some of the other clipping tools for that matter. But the fact that it's doing it at all, and I had no idea, and I had like literally no one said anything about that, and it automatically shares them to your Substack notes feed. I think that's really interesting. Promoting your posts, for example. I think that that's kind of like, depending on how much they do it and how good quality the clips are, it can be almost a little bit scummy in a way, like it's almost too pushy. So I think I actually deactivated that option, like don't post to the feed as much. And I think they also have like post clips to your shorts, which doesn't make any sense because it really failed at doing vertical like aspect ratio. Like I clicked on the vertical and it didn't work. So I think that the potential is there, but I turned off that feature too. So just pro tip, like turn off those features. I would rather just share the clips myself to the Substack note feed. In fact, I did for my last post. I saw an interesting clip, 22 seconds, 30 seconds long. I shared that to promote the new post that was coming maybe 20, 30 minutes later. And so that was like something that's really cool that I can do that. And if it gets the whole aspect ratio issue sorted out, that'd be really cool because then you can make shorts, TikToks, and reels. And then on top of that, you can actually cut out the audio from it and put it into a podcast feed and just does it automatically, which is, again, rare. I think Flightcast is the only tool on the market it's still beta right now, but it's the only tool on the market that actually can really do that. Technically, Repurpose.io can, I think, do it too, but it's more of an automation rather than something that doesn't just built in. And then on top of that, your post, if you've written anything, there is a transcript too, by the way, that automatically creates for you. But if you make a blog post too, you can make images from that blog post. So in the end, you get all this content from that just from Substack. And as much as I love Ghost CMS, this is really making me rethink the whole like place I'm going to be creating content at. Little drink moment. Remember to drink some water, okay, guys? And gals and days and thems. So creating content in this new landscape is crazy. This is why I keep calling it the digital renaissance. I was talking about this years ago. I think Dan Coe really popularized the idea, but really it is a renaissance of sorts. We have all this potential that you can use to create your reputation and your notoriety for being an expert in a field that you like. Or if you want to document your process of learning it, maybe you're becoming the expert. That's fine too. Documentation and authority, regardless of which area you are in, maybe both in some cases, that is an amazing opportunity for us here. There's people who have the authority in real life, they're doctors or something like that, and they don't have the online presence. So once they bring that up together, that's where the real success will happen. And so there's really amazing opportunity coming up. And people are talking about how like Kick live streaming, for example, it pays way more than like Twitch. And like sometimes even 10 times more, and maybe even more than that for some of the bigger streamers. So it's kind of insane that people aren't streaming on Kick that much. But the fact that you can actually multi-stream in general is the point. Like YouTube is where all the discoverability is. Twitch is still the platform that's kind of most known for live streaming. You still want to be there, although the CEO and the changes to their terms of service are making it really less and less appealing. Like they're shooting themselves in the foot and it's a sinking ship. So Twitch is not the platform you want to be focusing on right now, but I still think you should be syndicating to there. And then having Kick as one of your main focuses, I think is really smart. But there's still Trovo. There's still Caffeine if you have the right games for it. And then on top of that, you have like DLive. There's plenty of platforms you could be streaming to. Not to mention the vertical platforms like YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and Instagram. And TikTok is kind of in the point where I feel like it's not as bad as Twitch going downhill. But in my opinion, as a fan of TikTok, TikTok has gone downhill. And so if you're gaming, you still probably want to live stream to it. But if you're doing other kind of live streams, maybe not as much, especially since it's so difficult to get a key or a way to connect to TikTok. So I don't want to get too into the live streaming because that'll be a future episode anyways. But that is a major change that's going on right now. And then podcasting, like I said, is on the rise. People don't seem to realize it, but it is. Video platforms like YouTube have been really pushing really hard for people to post more. And especially since I could turn this into clips, and I'm really excited to do so, that's going to be really amazing to really reach more people. And then, on top of that, blogging is still a big thing. And when you create a blog, most blogging platforms, go CMS, Substack, Beehive, they're also newsletter platforms. You're doing email on top of that. So you're getting those emails, but you're also blogging, and so you get to have that kind of double whammy. And if you're doing all three, that's where you really succeed. So that is the point I wanted to make. That is the point of this channel. That's the point of this post that I wanted to make today, is that the landscape ahead of us, or just what we're on right now, is amazing, and please take advantage of that opportunity.